good morning to everyone who's here today. Thank you for joining us for the Conference of Paris. My name is Christine Aquino. I am a managing editor and presenter at Bloomberg News, and I'm joined by an esteemed panel of gentlemen who are going to be talking to us today about reinventing business. So before we kick off, let me introduce our panel for this morning. To my very left, of course, is Olivier Jaillon, who is the CEO for Wacom, which is a full stack provider of tailor-made insurance services for businesses. We also have Denis Michel, who is the CEO of Adecco Group, which is the world's leading provider and advisor for talent. Jean-Marc Olanier sits next to him. He is the CEO for Accenture Europe, which is a global professional services company with a focus on strategy, consulting, and technology. And of course, last but not least, we have Laurent Germain, who is the CEO of Aegis, which is a global construction and engineering firm with a focus on sustainability. So as I mentioned, we're going to be speaking about reinventing business today and what that really means in the current very challenging environment. So let's get right to it. My first question is going to be for all of our panelists, so maybe we can go down the line one by one. But that is essentially speaks to the core of this panel topic, which is, what is the best example of you or your company reinventing business this year? Olivier, let me start with you.
Thank you. So good morning to all of you. Yeah, I will try. We've had many initiatives this year, but I'll try to focus on two. First, as I'm a hopeless optimistic, we tried to capitalize on what happened during COVID, which was a lot of remote work. And we created an amazing initiative at Wacom called Wacom Wherever. And behind this name, this attractive name, the idea is that how can we extend our talent pool to the globe? Because obviously, when you're looking for talent, more and more in tech companies like us, you're looking for individual contributors, you're looking for data scientists, you're looking for coders. In our special case, in insurance, you're looking for actuaries. And extending the talent pool to the whole globe is actually helping us to reach a level of operational excellence. And to do that, we created a subculture, really a subculture, so that we can attract those people. But at the same time, because they're going to be far away, they're going to be maybe in Australia, maybe in Argentina. How do we make them belong to our culture? How do we make them feel that they're part of the projects? And really, this was an amazing, exciting project. And of course, it was a capitalization on COVID because we all had to do remote work, but we thought that we had to go one step further. The second example, and I was listening to the previous speech of Jean-Dominique Sénard, is we became a mission-driven company a year ago. So that was our first full year as a mission-driven company. And of course, I can only share what has been said before, especially for insurance company, because I think we're social and economic stabilizers. You could see during COVID that when insurers were not paying what was due or was felt it was due to the final consumers, it was a big problem. And becoming a mission-driven company for a vertical like us is very important. And for us, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of changes in the company. It's really changing the DNA of the way you're doing business. Very simple things. For example, business developers, they have bonuses on the business they develop. If you tell them, no, this is not a mission compliant business, you can't do it, of course, they're going to feel frustrated. So it goes from the smallest detail as like rebuilding the remuneration system to building the mission committee with independent board members to having operational commitments. And our mission statement at Wacom is enabling transparent and impactful insurance. And I think transparency and impact is really what people are looking for today.
Excellent. And what about you, Denis? Same question.
Thanks, Christine, and hi, everyone. I'll start with the purpose like Olivier did. Our purpose at the Adecco Group is to make the future work for everyone. And one of my priorities is to ensure that we bring the best of digital to serve the wonderful world of physical talent, human capital. And to give you one concrete example, we have, coaching is a very important activity for us. We help companies develop their leaders. And we have a network of 2,000 consultants, coaches, certified coaches that accompany, our customers. We also have created a full digital platform to help companies develop their leaders so that they are more agile, more empathetic, more collaborative. And we've decided to move and to transfer the traditional coaching face-to-face into this digital platform, moved all our coaches to the digital platform, despite the fact that, there's of course there's something intimate about coaching. This has been a massive move, but it has created excellent results. We've shown that we were able to increase retention at our customers because coaching was more efficient despite being digital. So it's part of the digital transformation that is there to serve human capital and the physical real world.
Very interesting. Synergies between the digital and physical world. This is the world we live in right now. What about you, Jean-Marc?
Yes, very similar type of experience. I think, like many of us, we are also reinventing ourselves, like probably many of you, because it's all about a big change right now. I think what I really believe is that we invest on our transformation at Accenture to put technology at the centers, and we invest a lot in our business to do that. But when I look at the things that I am most proud about, it's really that we change the nature of our company by not only doing the right things for the business, but doing the right things for the different stakeholders, for the planet and for society. And I think we are trying to apply what we do for us, for our people, for our customers, and for the society we are in. And I think two examples that I'm very proud of. One is links to talent. And as you say, Denis, we share that passion together. In fact, Accenture is a fantastic machine to upskill talent. We are every year rescaling, upskilling at least 200,000 people towards those new technologies that are making our life more effective. I think what we have done during this period in Europe that is a bit terrible, we have been create a private academy with the government of Poland for the Ukrainian refugee. So we were able to apply those technology for us for something that matters for society, which is women exiting Ukraine that needs to find job, and we help them to develop a new technology skills. And that's something personally I'm proud because this is links to what we do for our business. And the same for society. We are very proud about our commitment we have taken in terms of net zero agenda. We will be the largest company in the world that will be net zero by 2025. And as you know, CO2 emission in the tech sector is important. We are consuming more and more energy. And I think taking a commitment to change the way we work by 2025 is also a way to commit the whole company to do the right things for our stakeholders, for the planet. And those two things are, for me, a bit of the example around what does it mean to reinvent business. It means this.
And last but not least, Laurent.
Yes, I think when you want to reinvent a company, you have to, first of all, to explain to your employees what is happening. And what I said to all the employees were that we had a particular responsibility because we are in the middle of a great challenge. Because what is happening? The population of the planet will grow 2 more billion by 2040. The consequence is that we will need more buildings to house them. We will need more infrastructure for them to be mobile. The consequence is that the greenhouse emissions will continue to grow because building and infrastructure are responsible for more than 50% of the greenhouse emissions. So the demographic trend will lead to more emissions. So at the same time, the governments, the companies, everybody is taking commitments in order to reduce the greenhouse emissions. So how do we solve the paradox of the trend leading to more gas emissions and everybody taking commitments to reduce the emissions? This is the engineers. The engineers are going to be the one able to solve this paradox through what we call eco-conception, which is in the conception of a building or of an infrastructure, asking ourselves at each stage of the conception, but also then during the construction and during the exploitation, how this building and this infrastructure can be less damaging in terms of environment. This has boosted a lot, I would say. First of all, the commercial activities of the group, but also the motivation of the staff. As a consequence, the company has grown 20% organic growth when the market was growing 5 or 6%. And we have acquired 9 companies because you are also attractive for new people to join the company when you have that kind of purpose and you're clear on the direction towards which you're heading. And you are more attractive for other companies also to join your group.
Very interesting. So engineers are the future then, Laurent, right? All right. Well, let's dig into some of the various angles to the very broad concept of reinventing business. I want to start with the current environment we are in, just in terms of the macro picture, which is very, very tough. You know, we are facing inflation at multi-decade highs in most major economies. A lot of people, investors, economists, what have you, are forecasting some kind of economic slowdown or even recession in some parts of the globe next year. So I want to put this question first to Jean-Marc. What are some of the ways that businesses are reinventing themselves in such a tough environment? You've mentioned some of the ways that your company is, but more generally, what are some of the trends that you're seeing?
No, you're right. The environment, the macro environment is pretty challenging. You know, that I will share that with you. And frankly, like COVID, let's be frank, we are facing quite of an unprecedented situation because none of our economic model really forecasts something like COVID or this wave of shock we are facing right now. So we have to accept that there is a bit of uncertainty out there. But I think that's why I like this reinvention agenda. It's on very, across all the discussion I have with many different sectors, it's all about reinvention today. If you believe you can get out of it by just benchmarking your company with a couple of others and do the traditional optimization thing, I'm not sure this is what we need. We were talking before around the mobility sector change. When you look at the manufacturing sector reinvention through digital, when you look at the energy sector moving to renewable, when you look at the tech sector, like my sector, where the cloud is changing everything, and data and AI will continue to change everything. When you go across all the sector, it's about reinvention that we are going to do. And you need to apply, that's what we have done for our own business. You need to have the courage right now to go for that reinvention despite uncertainty on the environment, because there is more risk not to change than to change. And reinvention requires a vision, requires the capacity to invest that you sometimes needs to create because you don't have it. So you need to optimize the way you operate your business through a lot of technology as well. You need to have the vision around where the transformation is going, where you want to play in the mobility sector or in the construction sector or in the banking sector, in the consumer goods sector. And after, you need to leverage what we believe today is the core. Technology and digital is at the core of the economy right now, and you need to master that. And after, you need to get your people with you. And that's very important as well, because employees are going to make the difference in those very significant reinvention we see. So yes, the macro is not our friends right now, but the macro creates the awareness of we are not at a time of optimization. We are at a time of true reinvention of business. That's where the future is, and that's what we need to start right now. And frankly, today, if there is anyone believes that he can get out of this current environment with a little optimization left and right, I think I see less and less people like this.
So the macro is not our friend, Denis, but what do you think then should businesses prioritize in this environment?
Yeah, I subscribe to what Jean-Marc said, and I think what we have to be aware of is probably recession is probably on the horizon, but it's not going to be homogeneous, be it in time or be it in geographies. That's one thing. The second thing is, it's, all our indicators tell us that it's likely to be a job-full recession, which is also something new. We see job vacancies at the all-time high despite the economic slowdown. So job-full recession means companies have to prioritize, I think, their talent strategy. It's all about people here, to your point also. And when you talk about talent, It means retaining people, retaining your talent. And I think companies should remember the COVID story. You know, the sort of the hire and fire swing that has happened, which has been very, very difficult for companies, having fired people during COVID and then not finding the talent right after when the economy was restarting. So retaining talent is critical. Second thing is, when you talk about talent, is to understand what are the expectations of workers. And we see flexibility being super high in the agenda of workers, be it on, the scheduling of their work, the workplace, or even the contract. And, just to give you a few numbers, 40% in 2021, 40% of people moving jobs were going for jobs with more flexibility, 40% in 2021, 59% in 2022. So flexibility is higher and higher in the agenda of people. And the last thing is, when we talk about talent, is mental health and well-being. We shouldn't underestimating that. We made a study across 35,000 workers across the world. 25% of workers say that their mental health has deteriorated last year. And out of these people, 1/3 said that they were close to burnout. This is something absolutely critical if we want to create the world of tomorrow.
All right. So lots of challenges definitely in this sort of environment. But, my next question is going to be for Olivier and Laurent. In this sort of environment is very, very tough. We've established that. And I think sometimes this is the sort of environment also when a lot of the very lofty goals towards sustainability and being more climate friendly kind of get tossed to the wayside, right? To prioritize more core parts of various businesses. But what could companies do in this sort of environment to still uphold those goals? And what is the case anyway for sticking to those goals, even during the tough times? Maybe we can start with you, Olivier.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think it would be the wrong answer to cut on cost and investments, on sustainability, and all those topics. I mean, again, when you become a mission-driven company, it's because I think the public sphere is not enough to invest on certain subjects. You were talking about mental health. Public sphere is investing, but the private sphere, I mean, the companies should invest as well. Because you can see that a lot of people are close to burnout now due to COVID, due to a lot of things. One of my belief is that if we're looking medium term to long term, anyway, the consumers, I mean, the millennials, the Z generations, they will only work with ethical company. So they will not work anymore with companies that work profit for profit, what we were talking about before. So cutting on those investments would be a big mistake, a big strategic mistakes for the long term. Because, for example, for us, we're B2B2C players. We're quite far away from the consumer because we provide customized solutions to distributors like Amazon, Deliveroo, Uber, Revolut, people like this. So we don't see the final consumer. But what we can see is that this final consumer is starting to inquire about really who is at the end of the chain, and is pushing the distributor to choose ethical partners. And one symbol of that we saw is that we created it's called Fonds de Dotation in French, but endowment fund, I would say in English. And now we have a rollout plan all across Europe where we're going to add up like 50 cents to €1 to each insurance policies. And we have 8 million policies all across the 32 countries. And that is going to come to the endowment fund. And then the endowment fund has a theory of change that is actually around mental health and subjects of that kind. And you can see that the distributor, the final consumer, is very happy to contribute. They have very positive look at what we're doing. And I will just give a last example. We just signed a mega deal in the UK that has been announced in the press, and where we're going to do pet insurance distributed by vets and stuff like this. It's like hundreds of millions of insurance premiums. And one of the key drivers of us winning that deal against our competitors was because we were a mission-driven company, equivalent of the B Corp, because we had an endowment fund, because we had a strategy around this, and that we were sticking to our operational commitment related to that subject.
And what do you think, Laurent? Is there still a case for upholding sustainability goals despite these lean times?
I mean, I fully agree with what has already been said. I mean, cutting sustainability or ESG, budgets at this time would be a terrible mistake. It would be a very negative signal for the company, as sustainability is not only a concern of stakeholders; it's also a concern of our people and a concern of candidates. All the studies show that, and now even if we were to have a recession, it would be a full-time job recession. So the power on the market of recruitment are in the hands of the candidates and not in the hands of the companies. So, if we were to give up our values in terms of sustainability, it would have a very negative impact on our ability to recruit. I mean, as for Aegis, sustainability already was a part of our 4 main values. So there is no question about giving it up. And the consequence is that the voluntary leave rate in our employees is below 5%, which is very, very low. So this is a big asset for the company to have that, and sustainability was part of that. That's why, on the contrary, we forecast to increase every action we're doing on sustainability and ESG in the future, in terms of organic investments, in terms of acquisitions of companies that we identify as really contributing to the fight against climate change. So it's important for the retention rate of our people. It's important for the recruitment of new talents inside the company. And it's also very important in terms of signal for our clients, especially for the public clients. In the bids, more and more, if you don't have credentials in terms of sustainability, you're not even able to bid. So it would be a complete, I would say, disaster for a company if somebody was to do a U-turn on sustainability.
And I think that brings us very nicely to my next question, actually. I think both Olivier and Laurent really touched on the fact that it's really not just about companies themselves, whatever their profitability goals are. It's about the broader community, both consumers, candidates, the broader stakeholders. And that brings me to my next question, which I'm going to put to Jean-Marc. We've really seen the rise of stakeholder capitalism in this sort of environment where both consumers, candidates are really taking companies to task and making them accountable. Is stakeholder capitalism here to stay, and what are some of the ways that businesses can adapt to its permanence in the current environment?
No, I think you're right. I think on that has been a big agenda for that reinvention of business. I think stakeholder capitalism came a couple of years ago, and I think we are truly internalizing it in very different sectors. Today, for me, ESG is more and more, as we say, a license to operate. I think today it is very clear, and some of my colleagues mentioned very good example. If you want to attract talent, but more importantly, retain talent, if you want to attract new customer and retain new customer, if you want to access to government fund or to government tenders, you need to demonstrate that you do the right things for your business so that you are competitive, that the services you provide are the right one and delivered at the right scale and at the right price. That's still important and that will not go away. But you need to do more. And that is what is the challenge for business leaders like us, is to really, truly internalize that the world where just earning per share was the only metrics for CEO to be successful is over. Earning per share will not disappear, let's be clear. We still need to deliver financial performance, but doing only this is not enough. And that's what has created this significant change for all of us, to be sure that as a company, we do things in a different way. And I don't believe it's optional, because the example of this young generation you mentioned, we see that our average age at Accenture is below 30. So we see the expectation of those talents. But it's not only those talents, it's our customer. As you say, tenders, RFP process implies we do the right thing. And now shareholders. Sometimes shareholders are a bit ambivalent between, yes, we like the earning per share still, but they also recognize that if they want to invest and do the right thing for society, if the banking industry wants to do the right thing for society, if the asset manager wants to do the right thing, they need to finance companies that also do the right thing for the planet. Because we are not going to achieve the net zero agenda for the world without the business doing it. And all of this is creating a true environment where I think it is really reinvention. And I think for us as CEOs, it's a truly change. I think the CEOs that manage towards the PS only is not going to be the CEO for tomorrow. And I think this is really the dramatic change we have seen. We are not done yet because we are not perfect, and I think sometime in the press, we were reminded by a lot of stakeholders that business could do better. And they are sometimes right. But at least we need to acknowledge it and certainly transform our organizations to get there.
All right. Now let's move on to kind of the broader ESG conversation. Denis, I know you've made this observation where when it comes to this discussion, there's a lot of focus on the E, but less so on the S and the G. But I know that you are very passionate in calling more attention to those two aspects. Why is it equally as important as the E, and how can companies improve on both the S and G aspect of ESG?
Yeah, thanks, Christine. I think first we talk a lot about the E, and it's good. You talked about the net zero trajectories. I think this is critical. You talked also about the stakeholder capitalism, and I think on the G side, before going to the S, on the G side, we still have a very shareholder governance and not necessarily a stakeholder governance for companies. And we probably have to think a lot about how do we inject more of stakeholder governance into companies. On the S part, I think that the S challenge is as big as the E challenge. Knowing the inequalities in this world, this is critical. And our world is made of people as well as of nature and natural resources, but it's also made of people, all of us. And at the Adecco Group, we are a talent company, so we strongly believe that it's all about the S for companies. It's all about ensuring sustainable workplaces, sustainable employment. And sustainable employment doesn't mean lifelong employment at the same company. We know that this is over. But it's all about ensuring constant value creation around human capital along the whole life cycle of a worker. And that means sustainable workplaces that they take care of people from the moment they start until the moment they leave. That means, for example, ensuring that you have proper and responsible recruitment processes, proper onboarding. And then when people are on board, ensure that you provide them with decent working conditions, decent work, including workplaces, ensuring that fair pay, benefits, flexibility, as I was mentioning earlier, all this happens when people work, but also employability. And we strongly believe that if companies really cultivate employability, they will keep their people, because people will know that their future is guaranteed no matter what, because their own human capital is being cultivated. And that means upskilling and reskilling. You talked about that. And, 1 billion people will have to be upskilled and reskilled by 2030. That's massive. And it's demand-driven upskilling and reskilling, and not like out of the blue, learn something that has no use for the future. And at the end, it's also ensuring, because this happens, that when people are exited, that it's done with respect and with the proper transitioning efforts. So all this is all about, with regards to people, it's all about being not transactional, but intentional. And I would like to add one thing about the intention. We have to be intentional about how we how we look at human capital. We live in a mad world where people are accounted for as cost in the P&L and not as assets in the balance sheet. Right? This is crazy. But this is, and Laurence earlier was talking about how we reinvent accounting and standards. We've got to move on that. We have a task force for climate non-financial disclosure, TCFD. We have a same thing for nature and biodiversity. There is not yet a real TSFD, a task force for social related financial disclosures. And we should work on that because it's as important as, the climate-related aspects of things.
So definitely still a lot of work to do on this front. And of course, making that work easier is technology. So we can dive into this particular aspect of business reinvention next. And, just thinking about the ways that technology has really transformed companies in their process of reinvention. Olivier, what are some of the best examples that you've seen on this so far?
Well, first, for us, it's not reinvention. I mean, our company wouldn't exist without technology. I mean, it's very clear. Just to give a ratio, I mean, our turnover is going to be over $1 billion next year with less than 300 people. So this kind of ratio doesn't exist without a full digital platform and technology. And really in 2015, when we turned around the company and changed the business model, it was really a zero-based design approach on the tech and also on the governance, on the compliance, on the processes and everything. And we created our own methodology. So for us, it's really our DNA. For the rest, it might be counterintuitive for some of you, but we're super bullish on the blockchain. I think that the blockchain technology is really a revolution as big as the internet. It's been like the lines are now blurry because of the crypto assets, but the underlying technology is absolutely amazing and can bring a lot to your company. And of course, depending on your vertical, you have different use cases. I'll just give you a few use cases that we do. We have 3 main projects in Wacom. The first one is that what you call our policy admin systems. I mean, all those small policies that I talked about that we embed into Deliveroo or Amazon or Uber that are usage-based, so very small premiums, very short time of insurance. We can handle them through a policy admin system in the blockchain, and it's actually cheaper than doing it in a normal database because we use the embedded functions of the smart contracts. It's traceable, it's auditable, and we have a long-term hope that we will prove to the regulator that the trace in the blockchain is at least as valid as signing contracts with 2 signatures. So this is our first main project. The second project is that we'll be launching in 2023 what you call an STO, is a security token offering, which means that we're going to securitize part of our balance sheet. We're going to seed some of our risks to investors, and we're going to do that through token. And again, it's because it's cheaper. Structuring securitization requests a lot of money, legally, operationally, and we're going to do it once. And when it's tokenized, we can just like launch the token whenever we want. So it's just cheaper again. And the last project is a little bit more, how can I put it, like forward thinking. Is called what you call a DAO, is a decentralized autonomous organization. So basically, maybe some of you are familiar with this, but for the one that are not familiar with this, is basically you can embed in a smart contract of a blockchain not only a transaction, but the full governance of an organization, which means that you can create a fully autonomous and automated organization. And what we're going to be doing is that we're going to create, let's say, a full automated insurance company where people will bring in risks and investors will bring in money to insure those risks. And all of this will be done through a DAO. DAO exists in the world. You have 4,000 DAO in the world already. Only 200 or 300 are really active. But when they're really active, they're really successful. And that has nothing to do with crypto money. That has nothing to do with crypto assets. It just has to do with technology. So really, I believe that you, of course, when I give you our figures, we're proud of our figures. I mean, it brings productivity, but it can also allow you to make things cheaper and make things that you couldn't never done in another way.
So for the record, Olivier, you are not advising us to buy Bitcoin. So.
Absolutely not.
All right.
You know what? Actually, I don't have a crypto assets portfolio, and we spend millions and millions on blockchain.
You're probably better off in that case. All right. Well, Denis, I know that you have some very interesting thoughts on artificial intelligence and talent landscape. Tell us more about that. How exactly are those two concepts related?
Yeah, I think we're not yet where you are, Olivier, but it's true. We've come up with our Kappa, which is a digital asset that helps do the matching between the needs of a particular client, and the skills that are available in the workforce. And what AI is allowing us to do is to better understand what are not only the needs that are being expressed by the people, but some of the things that they might not tell us that they are keen on. For example, you have someone who's been working 5 or 6 years in the hospitality business and wants to move to something else, but sometimes they don't dare. Asking for a job in another sector, and looking at data and using AI, we're able to understand trends and propose to these people projects and missions in new sectors, and we see higher pickup rate, people moving from a sector to another. So AI has really enabled us to do that. And this is good because, again, that helps deploy employability because people demonstrate that they are adaptable to other sectors. So, yeah, AI can be super supportive in making the right people decisions.
So do you have an AI avatar that you would like to share with us today, or no?
Coming up.
Maybe in the VIP section later. All right. Technology, of course, Laurent, is very much at the core of engineering and construction, particularly when it comes to preparing businesses and structures for climate change. What are some of the examples of this that you're particularly excited about at the moment?
Well, one of the key innovations, in our business is the digital twin. It's the ability to design digitally the replica of a building or of an infrastructure. Then, at the stage of the decision-making process, you can simulate the impact of a new building, of a new part of the city, a new infrastructure, and then assess whether the consequences, social consequences, environmental consequences, are heading into the right direction or not, and provide us from making mistakes we had done in the past in the decisions we have made to do a train here or buildings there, which were not, good decisions. A very contemporary illustration of that is what we're doing in Ukraine. With the help of Dassault Systèmes and Aegis, we are implementing a digital twin of the city of Cherniv, which has been destroyed at the beginning of the war and liberated by the Ukrainians. With this tool, we are able to do a live assessment on the level of destruction of the city, map the reconstruction effort that can be done, give a priority to what should be done first and what should be done second, and discuss these options with the population. This is the kind of advances that technology can bring in our business.
Very interesting, amazing project there. All right, so we have we're coming to the tail end of the discussion, but before we do, I really want to spend some time talking about talent, which I can tell is very near and dear to each of our panelists' hearts. So let's dig right into it. Each of you have mentioned really the increasing importance of providing flexibility to workers. That's definitely something that is a priority right now for a lot of candidates. This is a question for Jean-Marc and Olivier. You both, I know, have some initiatives and projects that are kind of going beyond the, let's say, superficial work from home offer, perhaps at this point, and really aiming to make flexibility a part of your company's DNAs. Maybe you could speak a little bit about how you're doing that. We could start with Jean-Marc and then Olivier.
Yes, you know much more than me. But I think it's interesting because work from home is very much the brand name we see. And for us, it's not the issue anymore. I think this is resolved. Yes, we can work from home. And yes, all of us has discovered what it is. I think what is important for us is the experience on the new way of working that we developed around this ability we have discovered. At least in my industry, it has been pretty much something that we have done before the COVID things, but certainly COVID make us realize that we can do way more. But I think this is just a new way of working. I think what is important, especially for our employees right now, but also for our clients, is new experience yet you can generate after this massive experience we have had collectively to work from home. And experience around, yes, as you say, flexibility. Clearly, for certain people, for young mother, for example, having the ability to work from home and to have more flexibility in the way they organize their agenda is a plus. And at a time we are looking for more inclusive and diverse organization, this is something we have to take into account. But this is not enough. This is also in the way you manage your careers and how you can spend time on more personal projects, because you believe that you also want to work for a purposeful organization, but you want personally to be directly involved and engaged on some topics that matters for you. And we can organize that as well in a different way. But that's not enough. It's also the way we organize the work within our own organization, and as we are a professional services organization, with our clients. We discover that by working from home means that we can have virtual team internationally or nationally working together differently. And this is very important because this gives you access to talent that you were not able to access before. This gives you opportunity to work differently and to do design thinking or innovative section in a different way than before by providing typically an ecosystem of startup more easily today through virtual connection than before. And you can accelerate your ability to innovate. So I think for me, what I'm trying to do is, yes, working from home is very much still on the radar screen of all of us because, yes, what do we do with this? Well, what do we do with this is what I try to shape is designing new experience, new ways of working that are valuable for our employee, valuable for the stakeholders around you, valuable for us as a business. And I think on this journey, and I will be very humble here, we are just at the beginning. We are just at the beginning, but we are foreseeing fantastic opportunities to work completely differently, to manage our career completely differently, and to organize the way we do our business differently. And that's what is exciting for me, while the work from home is less exciting personally, even though it's a good thing. But I think what I describe is more the exciting, and that's where we focus on. And I'm sure your organization do the same. There is still a lot to invent here. We are absolutely not at the end.
Now, Olivier, tell us about the Welcome Wherever initiative, and also, is Welcome Wherever an option from the Maldives? Just asking.
It is, absolutely. Well, actually, I would start with something is like, what is home? Because I think the definition of home for us is probably not the definition of home for the new generations. And so working from home, as you said, is already somehow outdated. And we need to give a new definition of home because those new generations, what they want to be is agile, mobile. They want to have velocity in their decisions. And it's what we're building around this is to allow to have this way of life that they want to have. And so home can be the Maldives for 3 months, and then it can be a cliff in Brazil, for the next 3 months. And putting the organization around this is not an easy task because it requests, of course, building the comfort around the way they're working with the company. And this is not always easy because it means you're a super large company, one of the biggest in the world. We're a very small company, so we're still very concentrated in Europe. And when you start hiring people in different time zone, you also have to learn to work in an asynchronous manner. So some team will work on the same time zone. Some people will work during the night, will receive the work in the morning and everything. It's different manners of working and and keeping the velocity around it, which is not easy. And the second part, where when people are very far away from you, very far away from your culture, very far away from the cultural markers. For us, for example, we have 11 cultural markers in the company that are very strong. And when we hire people, we make sure that, they fit with those cultural markers. Is that how do we make sure that these people that maybe we will never see fit with those cultural markers and feel they belong? Because if they don't feel they belong, no magic is going to happen. Because the first theory is that, of course, you have a talent pool all of a sudden that is the world. So in terms of probability and statistics, you just extend your luck of finding the right talent for the right position. But then after that, as you said, you have to retain them. You have to make them feel they belong. You have to make them feel they're proud. We're coming back from, I think, to the mission-driven company. You're going back to the purpose. You're going back to everything. And also the second area that we have to look at, you talked about mobility, but I will talk also about very simple thing as packages. How do these people want to be paid? How do they want to structure between the fixed, the bonuses, the long-term incentives? For example, using the blockchain, you can also incentivize them through tokens. You can do a lot of things, and this is where I think us in France, we should push a little bit more through soft law, maybe, because our LTI in France are very difficult tools to manipulate. They're legally extremely complex. So when you reserve it to a vice president or chief or stuff like that, it works. But when you want to extend it to a whole company, it becomes an absolute nightmare. And this is not the case in other countries. So it's this approach of Wacom wherever is really multi-dimensional. It goes from the context to the mobility, to the package, to the culture, to the belonging, to the mean, to everything. And I agree with you. We're just at the beginning, whatever is the maturity of both our company, which is very different. We're just at the beginning of reinventing the way of working from anywhere and not from home.
All right. Well, let's wrap up our panel today with one last question for each of our panelists. Very quickly, are you an optimist or a pessimist heading into next year, and why? Olivier or Laurence, shall we start with you? Yeah, let's go this way.
Well, I remain fully optimistic. I trust the central banks for curbing inflation. I think
that's a lot of trust that you're putting there.
I think they will succeed in doing that. We see first results in the US, and traditionally, when the results come in the US, then it's just a question of time for them to come elsewhere. I think we can still rely on the stimulus packages, which have been agreed in each and every country after COVID, and they will continue to produce their effects in 2023 and 2024. And I think employment rates are still at a high level. So I think the combination of these three factors will prevent us from a severe recession. So I stay very optimistic.
And Jean-Marc?
Well, the same for me, as I mentioned to you, because, I'm fully aware, I'm like all of you, around all the short-term challenges and all what's going to happen. But, and the but is important, we are, in my view, in the next decade, we're going to have to reinvent everything. We're going to have to reinvent society, businesses, employee experience, because we need to move to a world which is more carbon neutral. We need to move to a world with different employee experience, and we need to completely reinvent the way we're doing all businesses. I'm talking to CEO across all industry. They fully understand that the way of doing business today is not sustainable. And I have not seen that in my entire career. I think the next 10 years is the most exciting I have ever seen, because we're going to change everything. Everything. And that's the most exciting agenda I have ever seen. That's why I'm optimistic. Next year may be a bit painful, but let's talk about the longer horizon.
We will check in with you at the end of 2023. What about you, Denis?
Yeah, I agree with you, Jean-Marc. In a way, as a shareholder, I wouldn't bet on a company which is led by a pessimistic CEO. I think we need to be optimistic. But I like to quote Hannah Arendt. Prepare for the worst, expect the best, and take what comes. At the end of the day, I think it means about being, capable of reinventing, being agile, able to adapt, and that will not surprise what I'm going to say, secure talent, because talent is the ultimate richness of our companies.
And Olivier, let me guess. Let me take a guess. No, I say pessimistic. No.
No, but I'm going to give you a short story. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a social network that grew and died very quickly. It was called Clubhouse. These were chat rooms where you could talk to other people. And one night, very late, because I think like all the CEOs, we don't sleep that much. I was in a chat room, and Elon Musk was in the chat room. It was the very beginning of the social network, and someone asked him a question and said, "So, what would you say to a CEO or an entrepreneur to reassure them to move forward?" You know what he answered? He's like, "Well, if he needs to be reassured, he's not an entrepreneur or a CEO." Of course, the guy is super blunt, but so it's just to say that I totally agree. We have to be optimistic, but I'll say two things. First, of course, and everybody knows that when there's a major worldwide crisis, it's a land of opportunity because it pushes us to reinvent ourselves much quicker. We've just talked about working from anywhere. I don't think we would have been so quick at changing things without COVID. It's obvious. So it's pushing us a little bit more. And I will talk just 1 second about the macro environment, but that's my gut belief. And maybe some of the economists won't be happy with me. But I think the peak of inflation will be for Q1 2023. I don't think it's going to go on and on and on. I think the central banks are being too pushy and too aggressive at raising interest rates to that level, because I think we at the end of that short cycle of prices going up. But that's my belief. Of course, I have a theory behind, but we don't have time for this. And so land of opportunity, plus I think the macro environment that will better off next year, on the second part of next year. And again, this is our job and our commitment to our people in the company to be optimistic.
And that is a wrap. Thank you very much to our panelists for all of your insights and to our audience for tuning in as well.